Hey guys, welcome back to Gear Forge. My name is Paul and today we're taking a look at the Oknife U1Pro. Now, Oknife is a tool brand version of Olight. They make a lot of things such as pocket knives, utility blades, and then associated multi-tools type things, as well as camping accessories. First of all, thank you to Oknife for sending these along for review. They provided these review samples for my consideration. However, they do not provide any monetary compensation, nor do they have any early access to the review or any input into what I say here. But just so you know, I didn't have to pay for these, and I'm going to try and offset that in my opinion. First of all, let's go ahead and get a size comparison with our standard 58 and 91 millimeters for Simon knives. Length, thickness, and since it's technically a knife, let's go ahead and get some open values here. So you can see it's actually just a little bit shorter with blade installed than a 91 millimeter. And let's go ahead and put it up against a couple of other utility knives. Here we have the screw pop round utility knife. So we'll put that at maximum extension. And a EDC Classic, the Gerber EAB. Now, if you are considering how this compares to something like a Milwaukee Fastback, I don't have one of those on hand. However, the Milwaukee is just overall much larger in footprint. Next up, let's go into a design overview. Now, this is a utility knife despite the overall appearance. So this blade is removable. Here we have a thumb screw. This uses T6 and T8 screws for the pivots, and if you want to Oknife accessorize yourselves, you can actually use the U1 screwdriver with that. It does come in with the relevant bit. A deep carry pocket clip and a crossbar or axis lock. Axis is the Benchmade name for it, which you're probably familiar with on classics like the 940, or nowadays probably the Bug Out is more memorable. And you can deploy it by depressing the lock, let it fall. You can use the included thumb studs, lots of ways to open it. And then on the back here, we actually have a button and this little notch, and this is a screwdriver holder that locks in place, so it's not going to collapse on you when you apply pressure. And included comes a standard, let's get that in focus, Phillips 0 and SL 3.5. Again, you can replace this with whatever bit you would like, and it is held in with magnetic retention. This is held in place by a simple button lock, just to press, and it closes, and there is a detent keeping it closed so it won't shake open in your pocket. There's no included space for spare blades, but given the nature of utility blades, should your tip get a bit dull, you can flip this around. In terms of how you change blades, this is a thumb screw. However, I will say that it's not the most easy of thumb screws. So because it is do this without cutting myself, flat to the blade, you only have access to this top portion to really grab onto. And of course you are working around what is probably a bit of a mucky but still somewhat sharp blade. So the first time you go to change this, I would actually recommend you just breaking that initial tension with a pair of pliers, and then after that you can change it fairly easily. This is one that I changed, well, I broke that tension on. So you can see the indication that you're going this way to lock it, so we just go the opposite way. And this bolt is actually captive. This is not going to come all the way out. This is basically just applying pressure to this two pieces of metal. And as you release it, they will spread. And then that enables you to get the blade out to either flip it about or replace it. It does come with these nice branded blades, but this is just a standard utility blade. You can get these from the internet or basically any hardware shop. And this is a close-up of your holder. See, it tucks in and then basically just gets sandwiched between those two pieces of metal. Reinstallation, very simple, just tuck that in there, and then this notch is just going to line up like that. Now I will say that when they first come, they are rock solid in there, right? There's zero play in the holder and the blade whatsoever. If you want to get that kind of lockdown, you may be either really yanking down on your fingers or using a bit of pliers for extra tension, just because just on the upper end of like finger tightening, you're still going to get a little bit of that. It's not a deal breaker. You can push further, minimize that, but getting that absolute rock solid, I think, is just a little bit beyond most people's finger tension. That's all. In terms of handle materials, we do have various handle materials. The ones I was provided was a denim micarta, a G10, but it does have quite a bit of a carbon fiber look to it, and this lovely sprinkle pattern G10. Of course, if you're going for a bit of a sprinkle desert warrior or desert warrior kind of vibe, then this obviously fits in some very Homer Simpson-esque carries. Bit of fun, bit of pop of color, maybe something to tempt, a lady in your life that doesn't want to carry something necessarily that, hey, cutting things can be useful. Now, obviously, let's talk about the design overall. Now, this, to me, doesn't scream utility knife, really. Now, these are utility knives, right? Even something like the Milwaukee Fastback is still, it feels like a utility knife. This doesn't feel like that. These feel like knives. These feel like knives with replaceable blades, which some of you might be going, well, that's what a utility knife is. Yes, but there's a distinction here, right? So let me take these two away. We just have the denim micarta one, right? Now let's introduce the QSB Penguin. This is a pocket knife. This is a pocket knife where the blade is the blade. You want to sharpen it, you sharpen it. These are incredibly similar. I would not be surprised if at this point QSB made something like the Penguin, but with a crossbar lock. They're so similar, this feels like a pocket knife. And that's a great thing, because whilst you may not want to carry something necessarily like this in a trade, if you might not for some reason, I think this would be perfectly fine. This blends in EDC very, very well. This just looks and feels like a pocket knife, right? The ergonomics lock your hand in nicely. You can get quite close up for that. And then just look how much of the utility blade you get versus a lot of the other options. This just feels like a knife. For all of $35. $35, you get one of these guys, which comes with a blade included. And as an added bonus, you even get one of these little one-piece tools. Little pry bar, ball opener, wrench jobbies. These are thin, very small. They're not the greatest, but I would consider it a bit of a bonus, right? Like, this is definitely, in my opinion, worth $35. It's very well made. The only thing, if I were to criticize it as a pocket knife, is that initially the action could do with a little bit of lubrication. That's it. Obviously, factory sharpness is good, because it's a utility blade. They're sharp, it's what they do. The only thing that you need to be aware of in terms of this, but you might not consider if you're just looking for a utility knife and you're not really well versed in knives in general, is that the crossbar lock uses a spring inside of it. I don't know if this is the name of a spring in general or just what Benchmade calls it, but in Benchmade at the very least it's called an Omega spring, and they break. They break, and fixing them is a little bit of a pain in the butt. I don't know on the Oknife situation if you would just warranty that or if you would get sent something. It is fixable, but they do break. It is something that happens. At the end of the day, they're very thin, small springs being put on repeated tension and action. That's just something to bear in mind. But again, $35. I think this is a very compelling option for a utility knife. I think this is a compelling option if you want a pocket knife, but you find sharpening any degree of intimidating. If you don't want to deal with sharpening or getting somebody to sharpen your knife, or if you just want a pocket knife but you tend to do, you know, fairly aggressive things like cutting cardboard up in retail or something like that, these work great. I would honestly recommend them if you want a utility knife, pocket knife. If you're just looking for a utility knife as a secondary blade, this is obviously a lot, right? I'm not necessarily talking about the cost, because utility knives can be stupid money in the EDC world, especially if you're going titanium or all those fancy things. But just this weight, this footprint, yes, you are getting the screwdriver, but let's face it, you could get screwdrivers elsewhere, right? If you're just looking for a utility knife, then there are cheaper, much lighter, lower effort in terms of carry options. I highly recommend the utility knife from Screwpop, Ron's utility knife, or the Twin Track. Those are great options. If you're looking for something a little bit more full-featured, more pocket knife friendly, I would go for this. This is by far the best utility knife as a knife concept I have seen so far. And if you're interested in it, I think $35 is worth it to give it a go. But let me know what you think. What do you think of the U1Pro? Let me know in the comments down below. There will be links for you to go ahead and check these out in the description. Once you're down there, please like and subscribe. It does greatly help the channel. I've been Paul, and I'll see you in the next one.